Hello and welcome to Bite Size Learning. In this bite, Jill and I are going to talk about getting started with Google Meet and offer some best practices to keep in mind if you are just starting out with Google Meet in this shift to distance learning. Some best practices that teachers in the distance learning program have discovered in their use of Google Meet include the following. First of all, schedule your meets at a consistent time each day. This predictability will increase the chances that more of your students will attend, rather than them having to log in to your VLE or your Google Classroom and try and figure out what time the meet is each day. If they're scheduled at a consistent time, then the student will always know when they need to be online. The cameras and microphones on or off continues to be a contentious issue, but really it's up to your students to decide whether they're going to have their cameras on or off. We know our students are learning from a variety of different environments. For some of them, they don't have a quiet place or a private place to do their learning. And so we don't want to force them to have their cameras on if they're not comfortable with sharing their environment with you. The same goes for having their microphones on or off. Students can still contribute to discussions through the chat box or on a Jamboard or using other features that you can employ outside of having to unmute their microphone. Try, that is to say, if they aren't using their microphone, try and build up their students' comfort with speaking during a meet, even by having a one-word question and having students all unmute at the same time and say it out loud, and then building up to more and more little bites of offering information using their microphone. But for some students, they're never going to get there, and that's okay. We have to respect where they are. Make sure you're using at least the start of every Google Meet as an opportunity to build or maintain your classroom community. Students are going to be feeling more isolated than ever now that we're back in a lockdown situation. So make sure you're giving opportunities to check in with them and for them to check in with one another, really prioritizing that community before you get to the curriculum pieces. Try and make it active learning rather than giving a lecture through your Google Meet. Do that through a recording and use your live synchronous Google Meet time to act upon that learning, to have students contributing to Google Slides or a Jamboard or in breakout rooms where they're having a discussion with one another over something that the recorded lesson went over earlier. And finally, if you are doing something important in your Google Meet that is offering direct instruction, make sure you're recording it so students who are unable to attend, regardless of the reason, are able to access that learning at a later time. It's really important for students who need to go back and review the information because it came too fast, or for those who missed it entirely. So just some other details about Google Meet. If you are going to record, be sure you let students know that before you press the record button. They do have to have that awareness that it is being recorded. And that way you can give them that option of having their camera and mic off during the recording if they don't want to be part of the recording. Make sure students know that if they choose to speak during that recording, that their voice and their response will show up in the final recording that will be shared with the rest of the class. After your meet, your recordings will be stored in your Google Drive. You will find them there. Sometimes there's a bit of a lag in that being uploaded to your drive, so don't worry if it's not there right away. And you'll also be sent meeting statistics with respect to who was present during the meet, which you could use for attendance purposes. It will also often give you the transcript of the chat. Again, sometimes there's a time delay, so don't worry if it doesn't show up immediately. I'm going to pass it over to Jill, who's going to talk about some of the other features that you can find in Google Meet.
All right, so there's lots of great features in Google Meet. It's been updating well, a lot recently. So I just want to go over some of those. So you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner a blue shield with a lock in it. This is your host settings. If you click on this shield, it gives you controls that you can use there. You can control who enters there by using the quick access piece. You can change it so who can share in the chat, who can send messages in the chat, and who can share their screen. All of this can be done before or after a meeting. So some of those controls can be helpful just to set a standard for your meeting. Now, the top toolbar at the top left has 3 different pieces. This little sort of human being one shows you the names of everyone who is there and their icon or picture. So that's a good way just to see who's present. The little chat one, that just, if you click on there, takes you to the chat, which is very helpful, so you can monitor that. And what I would say the most important is these 3 little shapes here. This is called the activities. And there you're going to find 3 wonderful features: breakout rooms, polls, and the Q&A feature. And they're great tools you can use in your meeting. So the Q&A function, first of all, as the teacher, you have to turn it on. So you have to click on it and allow for questions. And then this is what you see as the teacher. You'll see that the students will ask questions. You can decide if you want to hide it, if you want to check it has been responded to, or if you want to throw it out. What students see is just the question, and they can use this thumbs up to vote a question up. So if they all have the same question, instead of them all writing it, they can just upvote it. And they simply do that by clicking on the they simply ask a question by clicking on ask a question, and then they see all those questions. So this is a great way if you have a lesson or a modeled activity for students to ask questions in one space. Another nice feature is a poll. A poll is easy to set up. You click on the polls option, you can put your question there, and then you can add as many options as you want. Once you've created your poll, you can hit launch when you're ready for it. So if you go in your Google Meet a few minutes ahead of the students, you can actually set the polls up so that you can just click launch when you're ready to ask that. Or you can just do it in the moment if you want to check for understanding. So a poll is an easy way to say, hey, do the students understand? Are they engaging with the material? And to keep those lessons interactive and to involve the students. And the third thing is breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are great for group work or activities, for small group instruction. And as the teacher, you have a lot of controls here. You'll see when you go to set up the breakout rooms, you can decide how many rooms there are so that it'll give you a suggestion, but you can determine how many rooms there are. And then you can hit shuffle if you want random groupings, or you can click on the person and drag and drop them to different rooms so you can make sure that they're where you'd like them to be. Once you hit open the rooms, the students receive on their screens an invitation. It says you've been invited to join breakout room 1. And they just click there and it takes them out of the main room and into their breakout room. While they're in their breakout room, you as the teacher can pop in and out of the rooms. You can stay in the main call and they can come back at any time. They also have the option in their screen to request help. If they click request help and you're in the main room, you receive a little notification saying breakout room 1 requests help. So you would know that they require your assistance at the time. So it can be quite interactive. At the end, you can also close all the rooms and the students will receive a notification saying that in so many seconds the breakout room is closing. So you don't have to worry about saying everybody be back at 1:10. If they get caught up and they're not back, you just close those rooms and it brings them all back to you in the main room. Okay, along the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a different toolbar. It looks like this, and you'll see it all across. These are kind of your main ones that hopefully we're familiar with: your mic, you're hanging up the call and the video. If it's red with a line through it, it means that you've turned your video off or you've turned your microphone off. If they're white like this one here, then your microphone is enabled. A couple other things. On the left, you'll see the meeting details. This, if you click on there, will show you the how to join in case you have to send that out if you need that later on. The raise hand is great if you're having a class discussion. You can have participants click on the raise hand and then you know who's waiting to speak. Or if you're doing an office hour and different people are waiting to ask questions, they can raise a hand as well. Turn on the captions. It will put your speaking into text, although there is a bit of a lag and there is not any language translations on that. Present now is how you share your screen, and that's often very important. When you see the present now, you have 3 different options. Your entire screen shows exactly that, your entire screen. Every little tab that's open across the top, they'll see every element. This can be helpful if you're going to be switching between many tabs. You may just want to share your entire screen. If you're sharing just a tab, all the students and participants will see is the tab you opt to show them. If you are sharing audio or visual material, so a video, a podcast, a recording of any kind, use the tab. It works best for that option. And one of the other options is you see these 3 dots at the bottom. If you click on there, you get a ton of different options. You can launch right into Jamboard, which is an interactive whiteboard. You can record your meeting. We see that there. You can change the layout, and that layout can be important when you're looking at the different screens of who you want to see on the screen. You can turn on the captioning. You can report problems and that sort of thing, or dive into the settings. Thank you so much for listening today. Hopefully this reviews some of the basics of Google Meet. If you have questions, please connect with us. You can email us, follow us on Twitter, or visit the webpage. And if you're a WRDSB teacher, this week, the first week of January, Lisa and I are hosting drop-in meetings, and you can come and ask any questions that you have.